Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Stock Talk. My name is Amin Reina. I'm an investment coach here at Sage Investors, and this is episode 59. And today I want to talk about something that's kind of been lingering in my mind for the last while, and I've kind of just suppressed it and not really wanted to talk about it because it felt like it might ruffle some feathers and it might piss off some people and stuff like that. But at the end of it, I said, you know what? I gotta say something. I gotta talk about it. Gotta say something about it, and let's do it. So, what it comes down to, as an investment coach, when I started working as an investment coach, when I started my practice, a lot of my work that I was doing was really teaching people how to filter through all kinds of financial information. And it was more like traditional financial information, like, for example, financial statements, how to read and interpret a financial statement, an income statement, a balance sheet, how to read an investment research report, understanding who the players are in the investment research side. So as you interpret and read financial information, you're getting a more objective view of what's going on in the markets or what's going on with individual stocks. That's what I started doing when I started my practice. But over the years, the last few years, we've seen an incredible shift in terms of how information, in terms of quantity of information, thanks to the internet, thanks to social media, an incredible mountain of information out there that it's just harder and harder to filter through it, especially if you're trying to figure out what stocks you want to buy and sell. If you want to figure out what kind of ETFs you want to buy, it's getting harder and harder because there's just so much out there. Now, what I've noticed though is, what I've been doing now a lot more is not just teaching people how to do interpret traditional forms of information. I'm actually coaching and teaching people how to interpret information on social media. And specifically where I'm focusing on is blogs, financial blogs. There's a lot of articles and podcasts and that kind of information transfer out there. And it's been, unfettered and free form, but there's more and more I'm seeing some things that are kind of making me take pause in the types of articles and the types of relationships between the people writing the articles and people sponsoring articles. And what I'm specifically talking about is I'm talking about sponsored blog posts. And I'm seeing a lot more of it, especially in the personal finance area. And what's something that was quite, common in other areas, like, in the consumer products and that kind of side, retail side of it, there's lots of, sponsored blogs and postings out there, but we're starting to see more of it in the personal finance, and it kind of muddies the waters a bit. So in order for me to talk about what's going on right now, what I'm seeing right now, I need to take a couple of steps back. So, when I started it, when you think about traditional, media, how products and services are marketed, it's basically been what? It's been TV, radio, print. That's how products get marketed and sold and, things like put out there. So obviously, and a lot of the advertising dollars went through those media channels. So what's happened? Obviously, with the internet, with the proliferation of the internet, the channels have changed, and now we're seeing a lot of those advertising dollars that have been in traditional media now going into social media. And so, just case in point, look at Facebook, look at Google, look at Twitter. Those are the three areas now where a lot of advertising dollars are now flowing into. And we know the crisis with traditional media, traditional print media, it's suffering, it's struggling. Well, all that money is now going into social media. What's interesting though is that the companies that are selling, the marketing companies that are putting that are now going at a different way. It's not just about putting ads on Facebook, it's about going after specific channels of communication, of information, and that's where the blogging side of it comes out. There are people out there who write amazing blogs and write amazing content, put amazing content, who also build up a huge following and a huge following of readers. And so these companies now, corporations, have realized that, these are influencers. They call them influencers. So what they've done is try to forge relationships with a lot of financial bloggers. I'm just talking, I won't go financial bloggers, just bloggers, period. And saying, hey, can you write something about our company? We'll pay you. Write it in whatever format you want to, whatever kind of theme you want to, but you know, kind of like it's almost like product placement in a sense with goods and services. And so we've seen a lot of, you know, influencers out there. There's a lot of influencer websites. So if you're looking to buy like a car seat, a baby car seat, there's blogs out there that will blog about car seats, and then they will also, and they're very upfront with it, they'll say this blog post is sponsored by Baby Car Seat X, and they will talk about that. And a lot of times that's how things are now getting marketed. So it's a very different mentality now. So that's been the traditional way of, you know, it's been more focused on consumer products, and this type of influencer kind of relationship has been more on the product side. But we're seeing now it's happening a lot more on the service side. And now specifically getting into personal finance. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing companies like the banks, robo-advisors, fintech companies are now approaching really, you know, well-run, you know, financial bloggers, personal finance bloggers who write about all things personal finance, and saying, hey, you know what, can you, let's do something, can you do something, write an article about whatever, taxes or something, I don't know, whatever, and, you know, kind of link us together and try to create a kind of a link or a synergy between what they're personally facing and writing in their blogs and a product out there or a service out there. And ultimately, the blogger gets compensated for it. So it's interesting, and it's because, and I find this a little bit, and I'm kind of torn in a way with it, because it's a debate that's going on out there in the blogging community, is whether is to how to go about monetizing their blog. And when I think about it, it's like, yeah, like if you're writing about something, if someone's going to pay me to write about X or write about this or pay me to write blogs, that's a very appealing thing, and it's very easy to get consumed by and to take, you know, to go along with it. I personally have been asked to write blogs for various other financial services type companies, and I've said specifically, I've made a conscious decision for my practice to say no, I will not do that, because the nature of what I do as an investment coach and as a coach, I'm the foundation of my practice is offering objective information to my customers to teach them how to invest, and teach it to them in an objective way and not in a selling way, saying, oh yeah, go buy Vanguard, go buy that, because then you get into this whole regulatory and advisory kind of role, and that's something I totally don't believe in. I love to teach. That's what I'm good at, and so that's the competency that I like to bring forward, and that's the hallmark of my practice. But I'll make no mistake, I've been asked, hey, do you want, I'll pay you a couple $1,000 if you write an article about this. And it's really tempting. And it's like, wow, you know, I could pay for my blog, pay for my website, pay for this. If I write a whole bunch of whack of articles, like, hey, you know what, I got myself a thriving nice little business going on here. But then I'm worried about the brand, and worrying about my brand and what my practice is brand. Am I selling out in that sense? Am I compromising that objectiveness that I'm providing to the people that I work with, to the customers and clients that I work with? Right now, I'm saying yes. But, you know, I could be a total hypocrite and say down the road I might go and sell chunks of my space for advertising, to raise money. If you go on my website right now, sageinvestors.ca, there's no advertising on there. I have nothing there. There's no banner ads. There's nothing. It's just me and content and my practice and what I do and my courses. I get compensated basically through not blogs or not sponsorships, but through my time sitting down and coaching people and teaching people how to invest, and also the courses that I've offered, the online courses that I now offer, I sell those and I get compensated for that, and so far it's been pretty cool. So from that side of it. Now, the only reason I bring this up, though, is I bring this whole concept of sponsored blogs and paid sponsored blog posts, especially in the personal finance area, is I came across this article, and it was written by a blog posting from a robo-advisor, and I'm not going to give the name of the robo-advisor, and basically it was just an article talking about financial predictions for 2017. And so they did a whole polling of a series, asked a whole bunch of financial bloggers, what they thought of what's going to happen. And it was interesting, though, that some of the comments for some of the bloggers, and again, I'm not going to get into it because this isn't about going after and highlighting and saying, ha ha ha, no, that's not about, it's about just the action of it and understanding the players and where the messaging is coming from. So I read some of these blogs and they talk about fintech is going to be disrupting the financial landscape, and there's a lot about fintech. So it's interesting that a fintech company here essentially has a lot of predictions in here from bloggers about fintech being disruptive and raising hell and all that stuff. But it's also interesting because I follow these bloggers and they are absolutely wonderful people and really bright, really intelligent people. They know their stuff, they know their crap, and they can, I take them. But I also know for the fact that when I read their blogs, I know that some of the posts that they have there are sponsored. And I know they're actually sponsored by this particular robo-advisor. So it leads me to question, if I'm the person reading this article saying, oh yeah, fintech's going to be a good thing, it's going to be, these are the things, and I know that the fact that, and I didn't know that perhaps there is a bit of a relationship here between the blogger and the financial service company, am I getting a truly objective interpretation of a specific financial concept? And that's the big question. That's the thing that right now is kind of irking at me, is I don't know if I'm getting that. And so I'm finding myself now as a coach having to teach people and mentor people to make people more aware of how to read a blog post, because you have to read the fine print in some of these things now, because often the disclosure of whether this is a sponsored post, it's either really up in the corner somewhere, or it's at the very end. And I find a few times I've read posts and I go, this is really interesting, and they talk about, then it kind of bleeds into a company, a product or a service, and then I read at the end, this post was sponsored by company X, and then I go, I feel kind of like I've read like an infomercial, and I'm going, am I getting objective information here, or am I just getting an infomercial? And so this phenomenon, I'm seeing more and more of it now in the personal finance space, and it's a dilemma. It's a real dilemma, and I really sympathize with bloggers who are having to make this decision, whether to monetize or to just stay to their altruistic intentions when I'm sure they started this blog. A lot of people who start blogs are doing it to learn, for education, to share information, because the traditional forms of information were crap, and they're trying to offer their own interpretation, offer their own experiences, and those are very good altruistic experiences, altruistic intentions, and it's cool. And that's what has made the whole blogosphere a very viable and commodity. But now the thing is, the corporations now have seen it and are trying to get their little hands on it. So it's a real kind of, I don't know if it's an ethical or moral challenge, moral debate that people who put out content face now, is like, do I take the money, or do I stay true to my principles, or can I compromise my principles and still publish sponsored content? I don't know. But one thing we see now also, now when you read a blog now, is it'll say this post is sponsored by this, but all the opinions are mine. Now I read that and I go, yeah, okay, so this is your interpretation of what your opinions are of this particular issue. That's great, but then I can't get over the fact that somebody paid you to say that. So where is the balance here? Where's the cover? And it's interesting, and it's funny because yesterday we were all introduced to a new term called alternative facts, and which we all never heard of before. And it's interesting as I think about this and looking at sort of this whole paid sponsorship blog content kind of thing that's going on. Isn't that really sponsored content, just kind of like alternative facts? And so that's the challenge now that we as investors have to face. Now we have to deal. It's hard enough reading a company's financial statements. It's hard enough reading a brokerage research report. Now we have to read. You don't have a choice. You don't have to, but now you have to read stuff about other content in other areas in social media that may have a sponsored spin kind of tinge to it. So it's something, whether you decide how you read, at the end of the day, it's up to you to consume that information. It's up to you and to follow through. And if the blogger makes a really good value proposition and makes a really good argument to consider using a specific product, then you know what? It's on you. You got to deal with that. And that's cool. But But at the end, well, my job and my role as an investment coach is not to really tell you to follow this person. It's more about just be aware of who the players are and be aware of the relationships that are out there, because that has those relationships and those players and how they relate go a long way to how you interpret the content. And ultimately, this is about you making a thoughtful, reasonable investment decision. And that's the key point here when it comes down to. So I know what I'm probably saying is going to piss off a lot of people, piss off a lot of bloggers saying, hey, what the hell are you doing? You're working into our gig here. You're shh type thing. That's not what that's not what it's about. My duty and my loyalty is to my customers, and my loyalty is to investors, and because I want people to make good investment decisions. I want people to make thoughtful investment decisions based on objective, credible information. And so it's something that's been kind of irking at me because I'm just seeing more and more of it take place more in the personal finance side and the investing side. So it's just something I just felt like I had to say and get people to be aware of it, just to be aware of it. We're having enough crap, from the political side of it. The investing side is kind of getting into that murky water area too. So that's all I gotta say for that. If you have any questions about this, if you feel free, you want to tell me I'm full of crap on it, feel free to let me know. Send me an email through my website, sageinvestors.ca. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @sageinvestors, and I'm constantly tweeting in real time about all kinds of things going on in the market. I tweet also all my own personal investment decisions, because it's one thing for me to teach people how to invest. It's another thing to walk the talk and to model the behavior. So I put all my stuff that I make personally and the decisions I face, I put them online. I tweet them out too in real time. So that's all I got to say for you, and that's all I got for today. So that's about it. So that's been another episode of Stock Talk. My name is Amin Reina of Sage Investors, and we'll catch you again another time. Cheers.